Rosario. Let's get you up to speed with some news that you could use right now.
Hi there, beautiful people. I'm Anne Asis-Carilo. It's Thursday, and today we are unstoppable with a whole lot of energy, good vibes, and inspiration.
And I'm Monique Tuzon. We are here to bring you more fun and more energy to your mornings. Join us in the next hour for stories and conversations that matter.
We are so ready for our Christmas party.
I can't wait for the Christmas party tonight.
Woo!
But this is not what we're wearing.
No,
we're gonna change pa.
I'm so excited to see Pao's dance.
Wow! Saan ako sa sayaw?
Serious? You're the opening number of the Christmas party. You didn't know.
Well, I'm telling you right now, there might be a bit of disappointment there, but either way, you know, Christmas party season, it's up and about, and
Yes.
it is a weight gain season. It is gift
I know,
giving
nothing
season.
fits me
It is
anymore.
spending season. I mean, like
Spending
that is
season.
what it is. But of course, it is also still Christmas
Tis
season.
the season.
Remember the reason for the season, but then
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously very excited, but at the same time, simula pa lang. I mean, like we're starting off December, right? And just so many Christmas parties, Christmas
Yeah.
gatherings that you have to expect.
Yes. Actually, some companies, they really want to schedule their Christmas parties early, so to avoid the rush. Because when it's nearing the December 25th
Everybody's
already,
busy.
everybody's busy, and it's so traffic.
Right.
Well, I mean, like, it's traffic all the time.
I
so,
know,
you
it
Traffic,
is.
But December traffic is another craziness. I don't even know how to describe it. So
December
we'll see.
traffic.
Exactly. Like
Get outta
December
here.
traffic, and we already understand how it is on the roads every single day.
Now, an absolute social media ban for users under 16 in Australia is the toughest law of its kind yet. The law forces tech giants to stop minors from logging on to Facebook, X, Snapchat, Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok. An age verification system will be put in place aiming to protect young users from age-inappropriate content, predators, and the psychological toll of being online. As polarized opinions on this matter pour in from all around the world, all eyes are on Australia. How will they pull it off? Now let's look into it in general. We have with us in the studio to share their perspectives Gen Z columnist and content creator Angel Martinez, and we also have via Zoom sociologist Mark Angelo Sanchez. It's a beautiful day to the both of you. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to start off first with our guest here in the studio, Muna, Mark, as we go on with Angel. You hear this ban, you hear this regulation coming from Australia. What were your first thoughts about hearing a law banning people under 16 from even getting on social?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know what the total social media ban would look like. That's why I was really looking into more of regulation, education, and monitoring. Because when you prevent children from entering this space and fully participating in society, you also kind of block this avenue for them to kind of explore who they truly are and maybe even form and develop their identity. So that was the first thing that came to my mind as someone who grew up on the internet.
Yeah.
Mark, when you hear something like that, she mentioned it as being part of society in social media. When you look at that aspect, do you feel na medyo harsh yung ban na to?
Yes, I think it's very harsh to impose an outright ban because I think we should only regulate it kasi like our other guests mentioned, it's a part of society na. Kumbaga, di na nga makakapag-function ng ibang students, for example, without a social media
Right.
account kasi nga kailangan na rin sa academics, kailangan na rin ito para for messaging their parents and their friends. Kaya para sa akin, at least for me rather, ay kailangan lang siya isang form of regulation, especially within the system itself. Like for example, YouTube has for example, and Netflix has a kids mode where nare-regulate talaga yung content at yung kanilang access to other venues doon sa applications while not necessarily removing them from experiencing the application itself.
You know, Angel, experts are saying that teenagers don't really have the cognitive ability to what do you call this, check or have that discernment whether what they're looking at on social media is good or bad. So what can you say about this? Is this why this ban is happening? And what about the role of the parents in guiding, their children?
Yeah, I agree that children are far more impressionable and vulnerable, especially when you expose them to social media at such a young age. But I think that's where social media platforms and parents and schools kind of come in. Social media platforms and be more stringent in monitoring what kind of content makes its way to their platforms in the first place. Like if you're on X these days, you see a lot of AI-generated slop, eating disorder-related content, pornography, and gore. There's no more regulation on those platforms. And then when it comes to parents, they don't necessarily have to make accounts or kind of like intrude in their children's safe spaces. But it's just like providing an avenue to like ask questions, you know, like raise concerns about what they see on social media without like judging them or scolding them. And then for schools, my school before, they would just kind of tell me to think before you click and then just leave it at that. But now there's space also to talk about important issues like identifying disinformation, you know, how to deal with online harassment, you know, like really timely and engaging issues like that could really help mold the next generation of digital citizens, I think.
Earlier on the screen, we had a statistic that said a whopping 77% of most Australians are in favor of this law banning 16-year-olds and below. Do you think 16, that's such a random age, right? Like, why do you think they made it 16 in your opinion?
I actually don't understand because it's not like the moment you hit 17, it's like your frontal lobe develops all of a sudden or something. So yeah, I don't think like being on social media from an early age inherently makes you a bad person or kind of like exposes you to the dark side of the internet. I really think it's about like monitoring where these kids go, kind of providing communities for them also in person so that they just don't turn to social media with a heart full of like discord and hate, right? I think it's also about concerns like that.
Mark, 77%. Nagulat ka ba sa approval rating na yun?
Actually, I was very surprised kasi as far as I know, Australia is actually one of the most tech-savvy countries in the world and when it comes to safety rin. But when it comes to the percentage din kasi, the population ng Australia, I think it shows that Australians see the potential threat of social media, especially these days where there are certain pipelines that the youth is going through and it somehow exhibits an extremist behavior. For example, there's a recent incident in Australia back then and there's a shooting where ang kanilang tingin ay dahil to sa extremism wherein sa social media where the youth or the person ay na-influence doon. So I think they see the potential concern but ang nakita kong issue dito is they just put an outright ban on it rather than providing social media literacy and actually educating people on how to use social media responsibly.
So Mark, while we have you right now, do you think this is a violation of freedom of speech for certain age groups?
I think it's a very tricky question for me at least kasi personally I don't really believe in an absolutist perception of freedom kasi there should be a form of regulation kasi if we can let people speak of every age or every sabihin natin echo chamber, it will be contradictory to the freedoms of other people. But I personally agree na kailangan meron tayong form of regulation diyan kasi children or minors are one of the most vulnerable groups in our society or in our country. Especially in the nation, ang dami ng online predators diyan, marami na ring scammers where ginagamit nila yung impression ng ang pagiging gullibility ng mga kabataan natin to either make threats against them or rather manipulate them sa kanilang interest.
You know, there was once upon a time, I don't know if it still exists, but there was actually an age limit to actually have a Facebook account.
It still have, they still have that.
Well, but then
until
you can
now.
just you just go around it and
Yeah,
just
so
put your
we talk
age.
about, because the reason why I bring that up is because we talk about the word regulation. You both mentioned it, Angel, Mark, you both mentioned the word regulation. If there is a way to be able to regulate, what would the ideal be for you? Talking to you first, Angel.
Right, that's kind of tricky also because even Australia doesn't exactly know how. From what I read in my research, they're just set to deploy like a series of trials, right, to determine the best way forward. Regulation, as I mentioned a while ago, would really be also up to the social media platforms themselves. I interviewed a social media expert earlier this year and she said that Elon Musk, for example, laid off so many people in charge of content moderation and regulation on X once he assumed this position. So it's kind of really just also rearranging their priorities to make sure that this kind of non-negotiable content that shouldn't be seen by all kinds of audiences really, not just teenagers, don't make it on the platform. Like they really need to take a more proactive approach when it comes to this.
Yeah, so I just want to bring up one thing. You mentioned something really interesting. You said that the regulation has to come from the social media side,
Yeah,
the platform itself. Mark, ikaw ba, do you think that it should come from the platform itself or should there be other different sources of regulation, probably government, maybe legislative in nature, but what is the appropriate way for you? And what type of regulation are you looking at?
I think if we see it as a issue in society, I think we should take a whole society approach where we involve governments, corporations, and our own families or individuality when it comes to resolving this issue. Because yes, we can regulate, we can enforce policies on social media corporations to regulate the access of teenagers. But when it comes to children, for example, even I started young using Facebook by finding the loophole of the age policy because you can just change your age in registering an account, right? So for me, we should take a whole society approach and we should ask ourselves why children are using social media so much in the first place and why are parents letting them. Because I interviewed two families back then while I was doing research for online gambling, and one of the reasons why, and they mentioned that one of the reasons why they let their children use social media because it's like for them it's a substitute for like a babysitter where they can distract their children while they're doing their work or they're doing their house chores. So we should ask ourselves why our parents are letting such young children in overtly using social media. And yeah, so we should involve families and what do you call this government and social media corporations in resolving this issue in regulating social media access and social media addiction.
You know, Mark, according to a survey by YouGov, 77% of Australians actually support this social media ban. What do you think that says?
I think, like what I mentioned earlier, I think it shows that they see the potential threat of social media. Because in our age, or what we call a postmodern society, where every opinion can be validated online and echo chambers form, it can be a source of extremist influence to young minors. Even in the Philippines, where I saw some young minors having this extremist form of behavior wherein they sympathize with, I'm not sure if this is going to be censored, but Nazi imagery or Nazi ideology. And I think that's one of the concerns of Australians when it comes to when it comes to social media, the pipeline itself, and the unregulated influence that it can have to young minors, especially at a young age.
So, Angel, my question to you is, what if we implement the same thing here in the Philippines? I think we're one of the biggest social media heavy users in the world. How do you think that will go? And do you think we'll be successful in doing that?
Mag-welga yung mga 16-year-olds.
Mag-riot
They'll
sila
find a
lahat.
way, actually.
Yeah.
I can feel that the children
Yeah.
will find a way.
And I feel like even in Australia, like if the main social media platforms will start banning, I think they're just going to make another social media, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
without that ban. So how do you think that's going to work here in the Philippines if we do that?
I think it's going to be unimaginable here in the Philippines because when you take away this source of entertainment, of leisure,
Right.
of this demographic, where are they going to go? It's not like we have like
Yeah.
a lot of third spaces where they can congregate in person, or it's not like we have fully funded arts and sports sectors so that they can develop hobbies
Yeah.
during their free time. And not everyone has a robust support system too at home and in school. So without addressing these underlying concerns and kind of just implementing this band-aid solution, copying what's going on in Australia, I honestly don't think it's going to be very succuseful.
I find that really interesting because you mentioned that the spaces outside of social media in terms of entertainment leisure are not really being used. But is it possibly underutilized because of social media? Isn't that one of the points that other people are saying?
Chicken and egg problem, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. But I feel like if, for example, we gave children like access to more public libraries, public parks, which we don't really have right now.
Actually, we don't have that in the Philippines.
Right. I think that that would be like the catalyst for them to go outside and to kind of interact and immerse themselves in their communities more.
Mark, do you think that that's the case, that there is not enough alternatives to social media, which is the reason why children, people underage, are typically living their lives on social?
Actually, yes. One of my primary research is about social spaces in the Philippines. And for example, here in my community in Pasig, there are a lot of children who wants to play outside, but their parents are not allowing them because of the dangers of possible cars hitting them, motorcycles hitting them, and of course, kidnappers. So I think Miss Martinez said was right because we need spaces for these children to express themselves, such as for the arts, sports, and small community communal spaces where they can interact with their friends without the potential harm of cars or other predators outside. But we should also understand that social media is actually a form of social copium for these children to express their childhood. And because there are no spaces outside, even though they want to play outside, and they cope with social media because they can see their friends, they can play games with their friends, such as, for example, there are a lot of youth today at the age of 10, 11 are playing Roblox and Minecraft where they can talk to their friends
Yeah.
without physically seeing them. So it's like a form of social copium for these children because there's no spaces outside. It's dangerous outside, as their parents told them. They just stay indoors.
Well, we got a lot more to talk about with regard to this rather, but then, we can't put it all in one little segment. So we're
Yes.
gonna have to put that on pause for the meantime. And wala pong batas dito sa Pilipinas na we are gonna ban social media for the younger ones. But all eyes on Australia either way. Thank you very much for joining us. So again, I was Gen Z columnist and content creator Angel Martinez and sociologist Mark Angelo Sanchez. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Now, when we return, we will explore the viral cheating incident grabbing headlines on social media and the consequences of sharing private conversations online. So don't go away. It's a beautiful day. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching It's a Beautiful Day. Social media is feasting on the hottest cheating scandal in showbiz right now. But a lawyer is raising the alarm on the consequences of sharing private conversations online. On X, formerly Twitter, attorney Jesus Falsis says, quote, even if you were the victim of cheating by posting screenshots of any alleged affair, not only are you exposing yourself to cyber libel charges, but also to charges for violating data privacy, which is punishable by stiffer and harsher penalties than cyber libel. The cheating scandal became a hot conversation starter this week after the non-showbiz partner of actor Anthony Jennings shared screenshots online detailing his supposed affair with actress Maris Racal. Now, concerns over the impact of such dishonest behavior have sparked widespread discussions. The issue, which gained significant attention on social media, highlights the side effects of cheating, not only on the individuals directly involved, but also on the wider community. Now, to help us out on this discussion, we have with us via Zoom Dr. Joan May Perez Rifarial, the Vice President of the Philippine Psychiatric Association. It's a beautiful day, Dr. Joan, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a beautiful day. Thank you very much for having me, Paolo and Monique.
It's a
Thank you
beautiful
very
beautiful day there in Bali where Dr. Joan is at. Thank you so much for your time, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I hope that even if you are in Bali, you're updated with the latest chismis because everybody's talking about that Maris Racal Anthony Jennings issue, right? So that's why we're talking about this hot topic today. We're talking about cheating. Now, Doc, can you tell us what are the emotional and psychological effects of cheating on the individuals involved?
Yes, cheating, in fact, it's very painful. It can have a lot of emotional and psychological implications or impact on both parties involved. In fact, for those who were cheated on, they may go through a roller coaster of emotions. It can be very painful. It can be very traumatic for the person involved, and they may go through the stages of grief. Grief meaning the grief of losing someone, the perception of losing this opportunity to be with this person, to form a family with this person, to have a future with this person. So the 5 stages of grief may sink in or may set in, starting with the shock, anger, what ifs, blaming, self-doubt, and depression. It's not clinical depression, but it's a feeling of sadness, loneliness. And as we go through this process, acceptance later on will eventually follow. But for the one who cheated,
Right, Doc, I think we're having a hard time with your audio.
of course, they can also feel the effects of
Sorry,
Yes.
Doc, we're having a hard time
Hello?
with your audio, so
Hello?
we're going to try and get that fixed in just a bit. But as of right now, we're seeing a bit of data on it. You were mentioning, Doc, we're going to try again here, the effects psychologically on the ones who actually do cheat instead of those who are cheated on as well.
Yes. Is this better?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah. It might be because of the the Wi-Fi connection. So anyway, as mentioned again, yeah, the perpetrator or the one who cheated can also go through this roller coaster of emotions. The guilt may sink in later on, the humiliation once this story comes out, and of course, all of the feeling of anxiety and self-blame as well. So pareho, no? Both individuals may go through this roller coaster of emotions. It can be very painful and damaging to both.
Doc, you mentioned the word trauma a while ago, and when you talk about the trauma of it, there's
Yeah.
always an associated length with regard to how long people would actually hold that trauma. Is that something to consider as well? And normally, how do people deal with trauma and recovering from that?
Yes, there is no specific timeline, Paulo, as to how long an individual may go through this grieving process or this experience of trauma. Trauma meaning it is a real, the definition of trauma is it is a real or perceived threat to oneself or which that person may have experienced themselves personally or may have heard of. So there is no timeline for the reactions to these threatening or stressful situations. So it's a stress reaction, in fact. And people go through this process in their own pace. So that's why we always advise everyone that it's a process. We go through the process, feel the pain. It's better to feel the pain and instead of denying it, sometimes it's also good to talk about it with people whom you trust. Talking and retelling, telling and retelling, in fact, is very helpful for us to be able to process our emotions and know that help is always available. For everyone involved, we call this as the healing or the grief therapy, and healing is always possible. We always move towards acceptance later on and incorporating the experience into who we are today.
Doc, I'm just so curious because when people think of cheating, most people associate it with a saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. Do you agree with that saying? Why or why not?
No, personally, this is personally, I do not agree with that. Of course, we always emphasize that in any challenge in life, in any experience, there is always growth. There is always that the lessons learned from an experience. So, of course, we always say that there is always hope for everyone. So, be it the individual who is going through the pain, yeah, healing will come at the in a later date. But of course, it's always a process. But for the person who did it, of course, we hope for the best that they learn lessons from it and they grow from the experience and become better individuals, both personally and professionally. Because cheating, it's not just personal. The effect is not just personal. There can also be, yeah,
Yeah, you know,
professional.
Doc, you just made a lot of people in the studio smile on the backstage,
I know,
at the back.
I know.
With your last statement. Medyo natawa kami dito kasi biglang kulang na lang may mag-high five dito sa studio
I
namin.
know, it's so funny. As soon as you mentioned that line, what's
I
a
know,
cheater, always
everybody
a
looked
cheater.
at me like,
the cameraman was like, really?
Baka sa prog room din natin. No, ayan, nakunan ba kayo?
But Doc Joan, can you tell us, Doc Joan, can you tell us, can cheating lead to a broader culture of dishonesty? And how does that actually affect society?
Yes, it may. It may because for a person who cheats, of course, now these are the persons in fact who are risk takers. They want to take risks, and if they weren't caught the first time, so it may in fact open the doors to more dishonest behaviors later on. So maybe probably of relationships, be it in the office, in the community. So there can be because of the risk, so if they weren't caught the first time, then there can be the tendency to be dishonest in other areas as well.
Doc, right now, one of the reasons why people are talking about this on social media is because, well, linabas na to sa social media. A lot of the private messages, a lot of the things were brought out on social media simply because they felt that it was a way for self-defense, or people are trying to explain their side. When private matters are brought out to the public, what typically do you feel are the reasons with regard to that? Especially when it is typically a private matter between two.
Yes, it can be a part of what I mentioned earlier, the process of someone's healing from the pain. Remember that there are 5 stages, and the individual may go through the stages not in a linear fashion, but they may jump from one stage to the other. So one of that stage, in fact, is anger. So anger can be manifested externally, outwardly, or inwardly towards oneself. So when we post things online, or when we broadcast what happened, etc., it can be a form of expression of our frustration, of the anger, of the pain. And for that individual, we also cannot blame them for him or her. We cannot blame these individuals who might do as a way of coping, or coming to terms of understanding what really happened. So it can be a way of for them to process the emotions.
Doc Joan, you know what? I have a curious question. What really constitutes cheating? You know, because some people say they're just method acting daw. Some people say they don't have a relationship. They're just exchanging messages on text, ganyan. So what really constitutes cheating?
This in a relationship, of course, there is that commitment. So we start with that, the commitment to stay within the boundaries of that relationship. When we go beyond the boundaries of that relationship between two individuals, then that will constitute cheating already. So in whatever form that they take. So that's important. It's important that, for example, na in a marriage, diba, you are bound by law to remain faithful, to stick to what is appropriate and approved behaviors. And when you go beyond that boundary, then that would be cheating already in whatever form.
All right. Thank you so much. Very insightful conversation with you. As always, Dr. Joan May Perez Rifariel. We'll talk to you again soon, Doc.
The favorite doctor of our
Yes.
cameraman today. At yung the rest of our prod also. Maraming salamat, Doc.
Thank
Really
you, Doc
appreciate
Joan.
you.
There is always hope. So it's a beautiful day. Thank you.
All right, guys, so you heard it here
Iinit ba?
first.
Oh my gosh. Ang
There is
ganda.
always hope. Thank you, Doc. We love you and enjoy Bali.
Right, that is it for us today, this Thursday, December 5. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm Anne Asis-Carilo. Wherever this day brings you, remember to choose joy, spread kindness, and pack your own sunshine.
And I'm Monique Tuzon. Happy Thursday. Stay safe, and we hope you all have a great day ahead.